This meeting is being live streamed. Got it.
Got it.
Hello, Facebook. We're excited to be bringing you our town hall tonight. I suspect other people will be coming along because they forgot what time it is. They remembered that they're doing it tonight, but they're busy making dinner. Gee, imagine that. But we're going to go ahead and get started because it is 7 o'clock on the nose. I'm Dr. Betsy Wickstrom. I'm a board member of the 802 United, and I am joined by Julie Wilson, our board president for the 802 United. I'm just the secretary. I take minutes. And we have two wonderful guests tonight. We have Courtney and Hazel, and another board member is already on, is Tori Gleason. So this is our small but mighty team so far, and I know that more people are planning to join. What I wanted to do, just as a matter of introduction, is tell a little bit about where this nonprofit organization came from. It started out as Vote No Northeast Kansas. So clearly this had to do with that state constitutional amendment that shall remain nameless. And so this group of people on Facebook just said, we've still got energy when that was done. When August 2nd came and went and we had our historic Kansas victory, the people all over the country are still talking about. Everybody who's writing anything about abortion rights, about staying out of people's exam rooms, everyone mentions Kansas. So we're like, this still has legs, this still has energy. So we rebranded, renamed as the 802 United, as in August 2nd. And we are united against extremism. We stand for issues. We stand for policy. We don't stand for any particular political party. We don't stand for any specific political candidate, although one of our board members is running for county commissioner in the dot, just saying. But I didn't just plug that person. So when we have gathered together as a board, we have articulated I got to pull it up here, a mission of the 802 United. The 802 United values the people and opportunities available in Kansas. We strive to make our state a welcoming environment for all humans, utilizing principles that put community and purposeful kindness ahead of ideological extremism. Our guiding principles include focusing on issues and topics, not candidates or political parties, transforming ideas into action in our communities using the 3V method: voices, volunteering, and voting. Our organization transcends partisanship. We are not just not partisan, we're above partisan. When we create an event or a program, it's going to be flexible to meet the needs of our community. Choices of vendors and employees will be overseen by the executive board, and we will try to select Kansans for our vendors whenever possible. Our foundational values are transparency, acceptance, and authenticity, and we will adhere to ethical principles in all matters of accounting and finances in full compliance with all governing bodies and guidelines and free from conflicts of interest. Our vision is a nation of unified communities, promoting acceptance and integrity, beginning in Kansas. That was a whole lot of words, but it tells you a lot about who we are and what we're trying to accomplish here. So with that introduction, I have a couple of things. We're going to ask folks, generally speaking, if you are not the speaker, including me when I hand it off to Julie, to keep yourselves muted so that we won't have competing microphones going on because it makes things messy. You can also raise your hand on the toolbar or turn on your camera and wave if you have a live question. I definitely want you to put questions in the meeting chat. If you're seeing this later, you can also ask questions as comments on the post of this video. And we'll do our best to try to get that back to the person you're asking. The plan is to run for an hour at the most, depending on if we're still having questions coming in. And now I'm going to turn it over to Julie to introduce herself and then our guests.
Like Betsy said, I'm Julie Wilson. I'm a lifelong educator, currently retired. And I got involved in the 802 actually kind of by accident, but they roped me in, and it has been a good experience overall. So tonight we have with us Courtney Ricard, and we're going to talk with Courtney about the efforts that some of our state legislators are taking to convince Kansans that our schools are indoctrinating our students with whatever the hot topic keyword is for the day. And then we'll go to Hazel, and she's going to talk about how Senate Bill 180 will impact some of our most vulnerable Kansans, our transgender citizens. So Courtney, tell us about yourself and your family.
Wow, sorry, this is my first time using Zoom. I am unmuted now. Okay. Good. My name is Courtney Ricard, and you said about my family.
Yeah.
So I have my husband, Matthew Ricard, who is active duty military. We're stationed here at Fort Leavenworth. I have Briley, who is 10. She was in the 4th grade at David Brewer last year, and she is headed to 5th grade next year. And then we have a whole lot of little kids. We have a almost 4-year-old and almost 2-year-old, and then twin almost 1-year-olds. So, yep. And we're just living the American dream.
Living the dream. And you are in the Leavenworth School District, correct?
That's correct. USD 453. Mm-hmm. And we have been.
Go ahead.
We have been since kindergarten. Same school.
Is that kind of unusual for military families?
Yes.
Yeah.
So Briley had a lot of friends and just wanted to, stay in that school, in that district. And so that's where we are.
All right. Well, your state senator is Pat Proctor, and he's what brought us to this conversation today. So can you kind of share with us what happened?
Yes, absolutely. So this past fall, my daughter was asked by her school librarian to draw who is welcome in her school library. The topic that month, they do character traits for the month, and that one was, people who have overcome, diversity and hard situations. They've prospered. And so Briley, along with a few other students, drew LGBTQ related content, which I was the PTO president of the school last year. So I very regularly visited the school. So as I was traipsing through the library one day, I happened to spot it myself and think, oh my gosh, that's beautiful. And then I looked and I saw it with my daughters, and I was so happy. So I took a picture of it myself at the moment, just very proud. And the librarian came up to me and, said, I was, so happy that she drew this, and she felt, comfortable and safe too. So fast forward to the end of February, when all this went down. I was back at the school again for a PTO meeting I was hosting, and the librarian came up to me and said, look, the representative, Pat Proctor, was visiting the school to deliver some socks with a school board member, Vanessa Reed. I guess she had called ahead to see if they could go in to the school, the both of them. And so she just said, they took a picture of it, and to kind of, keep your eye out, for things, because I had heard what type of person he was, but I guess I didn't really understand the severity of it. Anyway, so I went and followed his social media, kind of watching closely to see if anything would be said. And then one day he let his February newsletter out. And since then it has been just a whirlwind of, I initially honestly was just kind of expecting hey, I'm sorry I used your kid's artwork. My bad. What can I do to fix it? Have a good day kind of situation. But that did not happen at all. It kind of went really far off the other way. I went to a legislative forum in town because I heard that I would be able to address him publicly there. So I went with just one simple question. And as soon as I arrived, I listened to other people's questions before it was my turn. And I noticed that every time a question was asked to Mr. Proctor, the questions were evaded every single time. He always found a way to not answer that question. And so I made sure to specifically word my question and ask him, please just answer my question and don't go off on a tangent about anything else. I really just want to know this one simple answer. And so my question was, since you are so interested in keeping politics out of schools, how do we keep politicians from stealing children's artwork and then using them negatively against them in newsletters? Because that is essentially what he did. He took a picture of my daughter's artwork, or Vanessa Reed did, and sent it to him, and then used it in his newsletter to accuse my child's school of indoctrinating her. So once again, he evaded the question and said that he wanted schools to stick to reading, writing, and arithmetic, which who even says arithmetic anymore? Like, it's STEM now. We do STEM. And he just keeps using that same phrase over and over again. So I didn't get my question answered. So that was kind of the beginning of my frustrations. And what I would learn was just him never answering my questions, never actually really tell me what's going on or attempt to do anything. So yeah, we went on KCTV5 News. I spoke with the Kansas City Star. Everyone has been very helpful. There have been a few, religious extremists and veiled threats I've gotten from the board member's brother. I don't know if you've read any of those, but they are very disturbing. Death wishes. It's been a very eye-opening experience, honestly, just to see what kind of people are in this world. And I guess I just was naive for so long. I grew up in the South. I knew that there were bad people in the world. Don't get me wrong, but I just didn't understand the severity of the hatred of someone just because they're not like you. So I guess that's kind of my sum up version.
Okay, so in his newsletter, was this indoctrination topic the center of the newsletter, or were there other topics that he talked about? On that,
I would say that he definitely focused on that. There were other topics because it was a newsletter, so he couldn't just make it about one thing, but that was definitely honed in on specifically.
Okay. And you said that your librarian had asked your daughter and some other students to draw these pictures welcoming students to class. I actually had read in the Kansas Reflector that there were drawings of stick figures, cats, a Japanese flag, and a biracial friendship. Did Senator Proctor mention any of those things, any of those drawings in his newsletter, or just specifically the flag?
Gosh, no, he did not mention anything about the other drawings. The school was afterwards accused of carrying a litter box for students who identify as furries because the kid drew a cat, though. So that was a fun rumor. And then there were different, like, children holding hands with rainbows in the background, and he, I believe, used those in his counting of LGBTQ content, which is pretty hilarious to me. And then kids were drawing shirts that were Roy G. Biv, not necessarily LGBTQ shirts. Kids like rainbows. So there was a lot of that content, just straight up rainbows. But there were still only 7 that had rainbows or LGBTQ content out of 150 drawings.
Yeah, I wondered how many were actually in the display. 150 is quite a few.
And that's frustrating too, because I don't know if you read this part, but he kept referring to the drawings as dozens. He once claimed that there were over 40 of them. So that is it's very frustrating to watch someone lie over and over again, because I'm just like, you're literally lying straight to people's faces. So the school board, the USD 453, took all of the drawings down and scanned them into a filing system at the board office because they needed a record saying like, hey, he's actually lying. Here's the actual number of all of them.
So did they actually come out and share that with the public?
They did. If you go to USD 453 board Facebook page, they do explain on the page. There were, I think they said 6 or 7 drawings out of the 150 that were like that. And then we even I addressed him about that as well. And he said, I saw it with my own eyes. It's not my fault that they're lying. Sorry.
Unbelievable.
I know, right? Gosh, it's just so infuriating. It's kind of hard for me to keep my composure sometimes.
So it's been a long time since my child has been in elementary school, like a really long time. But I have a friend who's an elementary principal, and you can tell me from your experience if this is accurate or not. She said that our elementary kids draw rainbows all the time just because they're rainbows and they get to use all their colors. Is that what you as a mother have observed from your time at the school and with your child?
Absolutely. She definitely loves rainbows. I will say that one of the articles, I believe it was the Reflector, called her drawing a rainbow drawing. And I think that does discredit the fact that it was an LGBTQ plus IA plus drawing, because she was being inclusive to all types of walks of life, everybody. She didn't want anyone to be left out. She never has. That's who she is. And so it wasn't a rainbow drawing. She's very specifically was not intentionally trying to ruffle any feathers, because when I even mentioned to her that it could have made someone upset, she was like, what, why? And I'm like, actually, there are people in the world who don't love everybody. And I know that's so weird to grasp as a child, but some people are not loving and accepting.
So as a family, you guys have been working towards making sure your kids are all very inclusive. Is that?
Absolutely. And that was another frustration of mine, because he kept saying the teachers were indoctrinating her. And I was like, I'm indoctrinating her. I want her to love everybody. I'm also indoctrinating her to listen to rock music, but she's not catching on. And I'm doing all the things that you do as a parent to try to make your kid the best well-rounded person they can be. But it's definitely not the teachers.
Well, I'm going to tell you from an educator's point of view, I appreciate that. So thank you. Can you kind of share with us? I know you went to the school board about this issue.
Yeah.
How did they react?
Yeah. So that in a sense, their hands are kind of tied. Obviously, it's supposed to be a nonpartisan position. However, of course, it's very partisan. So our board is kind of split down the middle. We've got about half conservatives, half liberals. And I never really considered myself part of any party. I just kind of vote for the person. But I have found in this situation that a lot of people that lean more towards the left have been much more kind to me in this process. The Republicans or the conservatives in the group, just, I don't know, they're just not even that. They're radical religious extremists, like straight up. It's like cult-like in a sense. And I guess I can say that now because I don't have any, I can say what I want. I'm a grown person. It's
your opinion. It's your opinion. You get to say that. Yes.
Some of it is, but please believe me that I support and love all religions. My daughter was just baptized last summer. I support her religion. I do. Just because I am not religious doesn't mean that I don't love people who are, but there are some that are just so far extreme, like Westboro Baptist Church. Like we have one very similar to that here right in Leavenworth. So it's been hard working with the board because those certain people have those religious extremists that are on their side and support them and have their back to the point where it's scary. Like I said, I've received threats that are alarming. I didn't leave my house for quite some time because my husband had to go away for the Army for a couple of months, these past 2 months. And I would order my groceries and sit in the house and lock my door and just stare out the window because I was terrified, because they're the good old boys and they get away with these things. And it's been very scary. But yes, the board has been, I would say, equally as unhelpful as it has been helpful.
So, you know, to hear that you had to stay home and kind of locked down is pretty distressing to me. Did you contact the police regarding these death threats?
I did contact the police. The way the person worded it, because they've actually done this before, they tried to start a race war, actually, I heard recently within Leavenworth. I'm telling you, it's very Westboro Baptist Churchy. But the police has said that it's essentially called a veil threat. So it's not straight up, I'm going to murder you. It's, I hope I find you on a deserted highway with your car broken down, or I hope your daughter gets raped by a transgender male in the bathroom.
I'm absolutely speechless, and I'm very sorry that happened. I mean, that gets right here.
Yeah, it's grotesque. When I heard it, I was just like, this stuff should not be said. Like, it just, people are disgusting.
That's why I have 4 dogs at my house right now.
I need a dog.
So how did the community in general, we've already heard about these people that are extremism on the right. How would you characterize overall how the community reacted to this situation?
The things I mentioned recently are a very small fraction of what I've had to deal with in the community. There has been an outpouring of support. Luckily, because Fort Leavenworth houses so many different people from so many different places, there's been so much loving and welcoming environment and people. And within Leavenworth as well, a lot of people have been, you know, super supportive. Anything that I need, if I don't feel safe, they'll, like, I've had people come and drop my groceries off for me because I didn't feel safe. People that would be willing to meet me at, you know, Walmart so that I can go grocery shopping, or just, you know, in general, we have your support. We're wearing your daughter's art on our shirt. Let us know if you need anything. There was an event recently. I don't know if you heard about this. It was the first ever Fort Leavenworth Pride Luncheon. Yes. Okay. So Briley's artwork was featured on that flyer. Did you know that? Yeah. Until Pat Proctor and his cronies came in and complained and whined to some higher ups, and then they tried to take it down. But at the end of the day, someone else fought back and her artwork got to stay. So that made me really happy.
That is good. That is very good. So as a parent who is obviously in the building quite a bit, being the PTO president or PTA, sorry, they're my dogs. Can you tell us, have you actually seen any evidence of the educators trying to indoctrinate the students on any topic?
So I will say, I have been volunteering there for the past 5 years, weekly, more than once a week. And in my time in the classroom, which is substantially more than him or anyone, I have never once, not once, I've never heard anything about the LGBTQ community. I've never heard, like, literally any small whisper of it from anyone, not once.
Okay, that's a positive.
I mean, I wish it were, you know, I mean, obviously, but I mean, I'm sure there were sometimes maybe a book read where there was 2 dads or something, but there's no, in the time I've been there, there's not been anything that I have seen that was.
How has this whole experience changed your family?
Definitely weary now. I don't really take my kids anywhere in town. If I go anywhere with my daughter, it's out in Kansas City. Because there have been, you know, like whispers of bad name calling towards me at, you know, Walmart or Price Chopper. You know, crazy. They call me like crazy liberal and stuff, which is hilarious because I really am a non-registered voter. But it's just, I think we're just a little more cautious now. And honestly, I was more worried about Briley because, you know, she is young and innocent. And when all this happened, I even contemplated even telling her, you know, but I'm very open and honest with my daughter about everything. So I decided to, you know, let her know. And I said, you know, this guy decided to, you know, use your artwork without asking me or you if it was okay. And she was like, did he not think it was pretty? And I was like, no, it wasn't the quality, it was the content. He wasn't a big fan of it. And she just was like, it's okay. Some people are mean. And that was it. And she really kind of just was like, meh, whatever. I left it alone after that. When I would write speeches for the board meetings, she would draw little LGBTQ flags on them and say, you got this, Mom. But I honestly don't think it's changed her, which makes me really happy because I didn't want it to. I don't want her to be jaded like I have become because of this whole situation. She still, has hope in humanity and that there are good people out there despite there being awful people out there.
I can't unmute myself either. That's very encouraging to hear, that it hasn't bothered her too much. And that gives me faith in the generations that are coming up.
Yes.
What kind of advice would you have for parents in terms of sifting through all the rhetorics that the extremists have about public education?
Just trust your teachers. They were given a job for a reason. They went to school for it. They know what they're doing, and you don't know what they're supposed to be doing. Like you as a parent, unless you have your degree in education, should just be quiet. Like, I know it sounds crazy, but like you don't go into a doctor's office and say, hey, this is the exam I need. And I have this diagnosis and I want you to treat it this way. You just don't do that. So a school should be ran by the teachers and the administrators and the staff, because that's what they're meant for. Trust your teachers.
That is fabulous.
Buy them supplies. If they need anything, if they want a lizard, buy them a lizard. They need all the help they can get.
So just listening to you talk, and I could be wrong here, but I don't get the sense that you feel like the situation has been resolved. Is that accurate?
No. Oh, no, it has not been resolved at all.
How would you like to see it resolved if you were in charge of the world?
Oh, gosh. It's tricky because there's not a statute of limitations for a situation like this, because I've talked to the people at the Kansas State Board of Education. I've spent hours on the phone and emailing back and forth with the board office here. And there's no way to word things that would prevent this from happening in the future without causing detriment to actual good people and politicians. Like, there could be something put in the school thing that says, hey, at the beginning of the school year, sign this, and it says that politicians can't come into the school. But there's an amazing mayor here that comes and reads to the kids, and the kids love him. And I can't take that away from him or the kids. And if pictures are taken by a grandpa and he posts them online and my daughter's artwork's in the background, like, there's not really a way around this being fixed. But if it were a perfect world, I would say that people couldn't use children's artwork negatively against them for political gain. That's all. If a far left extremist used a little girl's picture of Jesus against her in his newsletter, accusing the teachers of indoctrination, I'd still be just as mad. It's not okay to go in and steal children's artwork and use it like that. It's disgusting.
Well, is there anything else you'd like to share with us?
I would like to share one really quick thing. I was working on a petition to remove Vanessa Reed. The deadline was yesterday, and I was not able to gather all the signatures. I believe in life that you should not make excuses. You should find a way, right? I always have thought that, and that's why I push so hard to do everything that I can in my life. However, when I started the petition, I found out that my husband had to leave for 2 months to go to another state. So I was at home with twin babies, the 20-month-old, and I was getting 1 to 2 hours of sleep at night, sometimes not any at all. On top of that, finding someone to watch all 3 of them while I go to the library for a whole day waiting for signatures, which I still did, by the way, 3 weekends straight. But I still, I had people that needed me to come to their house, and I just I couldn't do all of that. So I hate making up excuses. I had a lot of stuff going on with my family, health wise and diagnosis wise. There was just a lot that hit at once. It was like, I'm honestly pretty sure I will never forget this year the rest of my life. It's just been a very rough couple of months. But with all that being said, we ended up getting a little over 1,000 signatures. And we needed a little bit more than that. So I ended up shredding all the papers with everyone's names to like keep their privacy. But yeah, he's kind of been making fun of me lately because I wasn't able to attain all the signatures though. And I don't want to tell him like, but I tried really hard and I just had a lot going on, but I really did. So it is what it is. I think I exposed some negativity within the political party that was like unknown, and that's good enough for me.
Good. I also have a kind of a mantra that I live by in my life, and I think it applies here.
Yes.
There is such a thing as karma, and she works. She just works on her time frame, not your time frame or my time frame. So it will be interesting to continue watching what's going on in the Leavenworth School District. Courtney, thank you so much. This has been awesome. Very much appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
I'm going to turn it over to Betsy.
Okay, awesome.
Wow, that's quite a story. And the gaslighting by Proctor just makes me want to throw something at him. I'm not a violent person. I spend my entire life healing people, but I just kind of want to strangle him. And also these people that are threatening your child. There is a special place in hell for someone who does that. That is not okay. Anyway, we're going to turn the page a second, but one of the things I would love you to put in the chat, if there's something you would like as an action item for people that are seeing this, and then we'll read that at the end or put it in comments in the chat on the Facebook video. Like for instance, going to the school board Facebook page or something else that you think would be helpful for people that could promote exposing this nonsense and promoting a better school district and a better Kansas legislator. Please put that in there. We'd love it.
Awesome. Perfect. Thank you.
And Hazel, I will be asking you the same thing when we get done with your presentation here. If you have some websites to point us to, or your event coming up in October to point us to, please let us know and we'll make sure that we are promoting that. Okay. So I get to interview my friend Hazel. This has been so much fun. We met on Juneteenth because Hazel works with the diversity committee for the city of Prairie Village, and she was very involved in that. She is literally the first person I saw when I came a little early because I wanted to know more about the event. And I can tell you, we've gotten to know each other a little bit better since then, and she's just a delight. So what I would love you to do, Hazel, is kind of tell us just some background on you, and then focus in on some of the many roles that you fulfill in life, where, what all kinds of things do you take on in your life? Because it's a lot.
Well, thank you. First of all, thank you, Courtney. That was a story. I don't know what adjective I want to use, but enlightening is probably a good one, and frustrating for sure. And thank you, Betsy, Julie, and Tori for putting this on and inviting me. I'm so honored to be a part of this. What roles were my story? I can go back a long way, but what my story? I am proudly transgender. I will lead with that because that's who I am and what I advocate for. I really, truly love who I am now. And what's so interesting meeting Betsy, you said I was the first one you met, and I have like bright hair, and I'm often the first one people talk to. I don't know, maybe it's because I have a smile, but I'm really just happy with who I am. And that's like a role that I take, is I try to be happy. I try to inspire. I try to live my life in the best way possible every single day, because I'm truly thankful for every single day that I have, because it was only about 2 to 2.5 years ago that I finally figured out who I was when I transitioned. While I knew something was wrong with me, I can go back all the way to, not something was wrong with me. I needed to figure it out. But at 8, 9 years old, I was questioning a lot of things, but it was, and then 5 years ago, I really was like, something's not quite right. But what I've done in the last 2 years to 2.5 years, I started living as Hazel 2 years ago. So you might hear 2 years, 2.5, is I really just want to inspire people to live their best life. One of the roles that I'm really excited about taking on is being a writer. I'm writing a book, I write a blog. I want to be out there in front of people, telling them how they can live their best life, and really just proving myself as an example of, like, I transitioned and I finally lived. I finally understood what happiness is because I got to be myself. And I will admit, yes, transitioning was one of the most, rewarding experiences. Most people won't. However, I do feel like so many people have something that they can love about themselves that they don't know right now. So that's like the role. I mean, I technically have a day job. I don't like talking about it. I don't clear my conversations with HR, so I won't mention them. But what I want to do is I want to inspire people. I do get called inspiring, and that's 0 times before I transitioned and many times since then. But I do, and I love volunteering. If you didn't know, I love volunteering with, as Betsy said. So that was technically actually Stand Up for Black Lives Prairie Village. However, the overlap is very, abundant between the Prairie Village Diversity Committee and that group. So I do that. I have 2 kids, and I truly just I love, and I'm not ashamed to be. Mother was one of the later things for me, because I truly try to live by example for my kids as well. I know being 11 and 13, they'll appreciate it later in their life, but I really want to have them see me go for my goal, find what I was unhappy about, and become that person. And like I said, I mean, I want to quit my day job, be a writer, be a speaker, be this person out there advocating for trans rights, advocating for people. And so advocate's one of the roles, one of the things that I've truly found, and I'll say this, and I'll probably say it more than once tonight, but if you knew me 3 years ago or more, you would not recognize me, not only physically, but who I am as a person. I didn't do speeches. I didn't do these things. And I owe it all to becoming who I am.
That's beautiful. Because of course I didn't know you before, and it sounds like potentially we would not necessarily have even met, because it is because of your activism that you are just out there, and you are, I mean that in a lot of ways. But for instance, on the day that SB 180 potentially came into effect, although there are elements of it that are still being held up in court and thankfully are not, and the governor's like, no, we're not going to do that. On that day, there were support rallies in parks all over Kansas. And I got to go to one of them and hear you speak there, and hear some of the other people that I have met over the past year there. And that was just a tremendous event. Would you speak a little bit about that event?
Mm-hmm. And I'll do one slight correction. The governor lost. So if I were to walk into the DMV today, tomorrow, my driver's license would revert. It's still in the courts, but the temporary restraining order was won by the wrong side. Anyway, but it's not over. But yes, the event on July 1st, it was the experience. I was really excited about doing this experience. I've known Equality Kansas and Mainstream Coalition, sorry, Jay, for a while now. And, been a lot of it through the SB 180. I'll go back a little bit. So in March, I read the bill, and this was something I talked about in my speech, is I read the bill in March, and it really changed my life. I read it and thought I would need to leave Kansas, and it was in committee at that point. So it wasn't like on a vote, it wasn't inevitable, but it was alive. And the very next day, I read it Friday night. Again, I told this joke that I'm like, yes, I'm single. I read bills on Friday nights because that's what single girls do. This is why I don't have dates, right? Like I don't drink, so I'm not going to the bar, but I'm reading, Senate bills for the state of Kansas on Friday nights. But the next day was a legislative coffee, and really I can look at SB 180 and say my whole advocacy, so much of my life has come from reading that bill on a Friday night and then going the very next day. And I met Senate Minority Leader Dinah Sykes. I met Ethan Corson, my state senator, Jared Ousley, Lindsey Vaughn. I met a bunch of people there, started being present. And one of the aspects that I valued was how being present as a trans person, and I mean, I don't pretend that I don't, like I pass because people will use she, her, and Hazel, but people know I'm trans. I'm not stealth is the word that some people would say. But showing up and being physically present means the question gets asked. At that legislative coffee, again, I'm back in March, everybody, but I asked the question about the trans legislation, and there was probably only 5 or 6 questions answered. When you get 5 panelists, all who are elected officials, believe it or not, they don't get a lot of questions. But one of the questions they asked was my trans bill, like, what are we going to do to stop this? And I truly believe that being present, being asked by a trans person, of course, was my hair colored at that point? I don't remember if my hair was colored at that point, but
it's kind of your trademark. I'd be surprised if it wasn't.
It is. I get recognized now because I know it's because of this, but the being there and being present is how I get the attention, and being present is how people have the conversations. And I think that's what's most important is when on the July 1st rally and my speech, there were a lot of politicians present. I didn't really notice how many until I was done with my speech and I came back and I'm like, oh, there's so-and-so, there's so-and-so. But the whole like lead up and just being visible and being, recognizable, and showing up. I mean, technically, I guess I have bravery, courage. I don't know. I think it's just the right thing to do, but I know people don't want to do it. And showing up, and I love it. One thing about the rally is I'm just like, everybody should go. Everybody watch me. Everybody watch me. I want to see like hundreds of people there. And when I know I'm kind of rambling, but one thing that when I was talking ahead of the July 1st rally, a friend of mine who's trans also was like, they were like, are you nervous? And I'm like, nervous, but I'm really in that good spot of nerves. I mean, anxiety is good, right? Like it's an evolutionary, trait that if we're walking into something and makes us nervous, we're more focused, we're more attentive to things. And I'm like, I'm using it. And I'm like, I'm really excited for this opportunity because I want to make my voice known and I want people to hear me. And I was worried I wouldn't have another chance. And turns out I have some more chances, but I wanted to just like seek out this opportunity, use it to the best of my ability. And I'm really happy with how it turned out. I've shared it a few times and, but then I'm still like, well, this is just the day. Like, this is July 1st. We're nowhere in sight of ending this, unfortunately. But then that means you're going to see more of me. There's more things coming up, trust me, for me. And so
I don't know how familiar people are with SB 180 and what the consequences of that bill are for trans people. Can you shine some light on that?
Yes. So when I was reading it, if you saw my speech again, I got about 1/3 of the way through and I was really nervous. So what it does is it takes people who are elected and they're defining what male and female are based on the ability to produce children. Now.
Oh,
if
it's not
you
even
thought-
children. It's producing sperm or producing eggs.
Well, with the
I,
intent
as
of,
a
right,
menopausal woman, have been shrunk down to my little tiny shriveled ovaries.
well,
I
right.
want to say a very bad word right now, and I'm not going to. Please continue.
But right, so there's a lot of questions. So it defines people on the presumptive ability to produce children, and it doesn't take into account plethora of, uniquenesses. I'm gonna use a positive word. Everyone's unique, and it tries to put people into two boxes, and it really doesn't do a very good job of it. So we all know what it's intended on doing. Even if Betsy and I are at a place and we're walking into the bathroom, they're never going to stop her, but they may stop me. One thing is, what it does is define based on gender, based on the presumptive ability to produce children. And it really is about discriminating against trans people. I heard an anecdote from someone who's in Topeka, an elected official. I don't remember which one, but they were saying that, I think it was in the House. So it's called the Women's Bill of Rights. And because, that's what defining male and female is the Women's Bill of Rights, right? Without any penalties or anything. But there was a representative who was saying, well, why don't we add equal pay to this bill for women? And this person was told, that's not what this is about. You know what this is about. So they were trying to placate to enough people to vote for it based on the definition. So intersex people are defined as disabled, which in this whole argument about surgeries and all these other things, they're okay with mutilating newborn babies' bodies if they're intersex to make them fit into these boxes, yet hormones or therapy or using pronouns correctly is an issue for a 12-year-old. So it's really become, but SB 180 is just a tool for discrimination.
So I think one of the bills that didn't pass was going to define gender affirming care as child abuse and genital mutilation. And so would you please talk a little bit about just the truth about if an adolescent is questioning whether they perhaps may their soul and their brain may not match their physical appearance, what does transition look like for them?
So so it's a great question. And then I'm glad that you worded it with like soul and who they are. That's where it begins. I'll just speak on my personal journey at 8 or 9 years old. I didn't like my name. I didn't like my clothes, like my dead name. I love Hazel so much. But there was a lot of personal anguish, and I didn't have the resources available to talk about it. In fact, the resources that were available were hindering any kind of exploration. So what it is it's minimally offering professionals to talk about potential gender discussions. So it's literally just mental health care in the beginning. And then it can lead up into social transitioning. Social transitioning is using names and pronouns. It's no medical intervention at first because no doctor's really just starting with medical intervention or medical transitioning. So when we talk about gender affirming care being banned, and thankfully it didn't happen in Kansas, but it's happened in other states, including Missouri. I'm pointing to the east here. They're using pronouns that the child asks for, using a name that the child asks for, using or allowing conversations with school resources, counselors and things like that. So when they talk about banning certain people in the schools, counselors, that's what they're talking about is gender affirming care, because it's just affirming their gender. And I'll just put this out there. I've never read any medical professional or anything that says surgery on kids is okay. I don't believe surgery on kids is okay because there's bodies are going through things, and I wouldn't do it until the body's full grown. But then again, like, there are ways to do things that are safe, and even puberty blockers have been prescribed for decades. Puberty blockers are a thing that's been prescribed for decades, has not been deemed like illegal or immoral or what is it called? Questionable, experimental. That's the word I'm
Unethical,
looking
yeah,
for.
experimental.
Yeah, until it's prescribed for trans kids. And that is really, so it was like literally fine. It's called precocious puberty is the name of the ailment. So it just slows down puberty till the child reaches a certain age. It's a thing that's been available, but once it was prescribed for trans kids, that's when it became an issue. That's when it became experimental. And it's like, well, wait a minute. And they're talking like, so the rhetoric, you know, talked about gaslighting, talked about not answering the questions, like Courtney. I'm like, oh, like I've been like listening to politicians for years, and I'm like, yeah, they're a bunch of, they don't say what they're supposed to say, but they just have their talking points. So yeah, gender affirming care is basically just affirming someone's gender, and it's not going to, you know, it's not going to surgery. And even when surgery is being discussed in adulthood, it goes through multiple professionals. Just for instance, you have to go to a doctor and have a doctor conversation, and a doctor sign a letter, and then another, you know, there's other people that do it. I don't just say, hey, I'm Hazel, can you change my body today? And like, I leave with a new body. No, like it's a process. Yeah, it's a process that's not, you know, and that's just for everybody, and let alone teens and youths.
Tori is putting in the chat, 20 states have banned gender affirming care as of today. On January 1st, 2021, not a single state had banned it. So this is sort of the new scarecrow, the new boogeyman that extremists are pulling up, because there are fewer people that identify as trans, and that therefore makes you vulnerable and makes you a minority, which to me, if you're a minority, that means you need to be protected. But the absolute opposite is what they're trying to promote. And as Tori mentioned, 5 states include felony punishment for gender affirming care: Idaho, Oklahoma, North Dakota, Alabama, Florida. What you need to know is that if a physician gets a felony conviction, we lose our medical license. We never practice medicine again. So when legislators are trying to make abortion a felony, one bill was trying to say that life begins at conception, therefore IVF is a felony, making gender affirming care a felony, they're going to drive every physician out of the state before long, because everything that's not cis white male is illegal. And then also, I'm just going to read Tori's comments here. You could just come on Mike and say this, but the bills are currently blocked full or partially in Arkansas, Alabama, Florida, Indiana, Kentucky. Lawsuits have been filed in Georgia, Idaho, Montana, Nebraska, and Texas, and expected to be filed in Arizona, Iowa, Mississippi, Missouri, North Dakota, South Dakota, Utah, and West Virginia. Tennessee was blocked, but has now been allowed to go through. So why is it that all of these sort of cookie cutter bills are popping up in all of these states? Do you know?
What I do know is that there is a lot of organization and money behind it. I understand there's a lot of religious organizations behind it. And what is happening is that people are getting elected or getting money, people being the legislators, and given bills to say, hey, we gave you this money, can you go put this on the floor? And I think it was a pretty calculated approach, because what happened with SB 180 in Kansas is different. It was different. There are bills that are showing up now, and it was just like a test. You know, they just put this one in Kansas, this in Arkansas, this in here, and they see what works, what this politician, so even in Missouri, again, I'm pointing to the east, there were different bills, but they were the same flavors. You know, and so what's interesting is I read some of these bills and they were almost verbatim, even within Jefferson City. But they just, I don't know what the approach was, but yeah, there's
Oh, I
money
guarantee
behind
they're all
it.
talking to each other. The Heritage Foundation is literally producing these bills and spoon feeding them to regressive extremist legislators.
Right, and getting them elected and then asking them to cash the check, right? And that's what worries me. And then what's happening in Kansas is that there's a lot of bullying tactics, I think, with the leadership in the Republican Party. And I mean, there was 2 Republicans who broke ranks in Kansas, although one Democrat also net won. And so while they will tell you in person one thing that they don't believe it, they'll vote a different way. So there's a lot of shady things happening. I know I ticked off one representative when I was a little derogatory towards the legislator, and this person didn't want me to say all legislators are bad. The legislators in the room kind of read the room, but yeah, it's a little shady what's happening, and there's bullying, there's money being pushed around, and all for a distraction. Reality is the number, I don't know what the number is because it keeps changing as far as, but I estimated about 400 people in Kansas had their gender marker changed on their driver's license, which means as a trans woman, I have female on my driver's license, which I had to petition the state for, yada, yada, about 400 people. So in comparison, there are 125 state representatives, 40 state senators. So 165 people were debating this to have 400 letters changed on 400 IDs for 400 Kansans. That's the impact. Yet that's what we're talking about. And who cares about the billions of dollars that the federal government wants to give Kansas to expand Medicare? Who cares about that? Because there's 400 letters we need to change. That's where, like, that's what's happening. They want to win something, and roughly 1% to 2% of people are transgender, according to some numbers, depending on where you are. And it's just, we're an easy population to bully. And because people don't know trans people, and that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to be like, hey, I'm pretty delightful.
Yes, you are. You're a freaking delight. I say that about you all the time. So what can we do? What can the 802 United in general, us specifically for that matter, as board members, what can we do to support trans Kansans and support you and make life better in some way?
Okay. Thank you for this question. This is the most important question, right? Takeaways. So I do a lot of advocacy through social media. Befriend me. I do vet my friends, but follow me or other organizations. I do offer my story to be shared through me or through other people. I tell people 3 million people who are, there's 3 million people, 3 million Kansans, and I'm ready to have this conversation 3 million times. I would love to, create some efficiencies here. I would love to talk to anybody. I don't drink alcohol, but I love coffee. So I'm happy to have these conversations, but also I'll say, be informed about your state legislators. Where I live in Prairie Village, I know my state senator, I know the neighboring state senators, I know these representatives, I know they're voting with me, but it's not very far away. It's still in Johnson County. It's not a rural thing. Even in Johnson County, there's legislators who are voting against the trans community. Learn about it. And I say send 2 emails. state senator, state representative. It could be 3 sentences. I support the trans Kansans. If you vote against them, I will not vote for you. Thanks, name. I have a link that you can find your state legislator, but sending those 2 emails out and sharing my story, it is free. If you make money off of it, I just ask for a little bit back, but just share it. I think it's just so important to tell people. I met a trans woman. It was interesting. Did you hear about what's happening in Kansas? It's really awful. And then go from there.
I'm typing what you said in the chat right now. I support trans Kansans. If you vote against them, I will not vote for you. Boom.
Yeah, and like, but that's like, and there's I mean, I've shared the link to find, it's like, find your state senator, your state representative. Usually Google Kansas representative, find your legislator, it'll pull it up. Because I tell people literally, this is what you need to do. They're like, I don't know mine. I'm like, here's your website, but I can do it. I send committee members things, but when you say, I vote for you, or I'm in your district, I won't vote for you, you get heard a little bit more loudly than me.
Right. And there's no reason to be mean. There's no reason to yell at people. You just state your case and say, thank
Right.
you.
Yeah. And then, yeah. And I would just say that anyone who I don't parse words. I don't split hairs. If you vote for someone, mostly with, again, Courtney did it. I could be political. Most of the people with an R next to their name are voting against us. So roughly 98% party lines in Kansas right now. A vote for R is a vote against me. I've told people who don't vote, I will not be your friend. It's that important because really it is my life. This isn't like, be thankful you can pay taxes. Like my life could be over. Like you can pay taxes or lower taxes or whatever, but my life's over. Like
Right.
It's that important.
Your ability to live as your authentic self is being crushed. And to see how much joy that brings you, and to imagine somebody wanting to snuff that light out, that's tragic. That is not okay. And
my
we need to be
story.
supporting you.
Like-
That's your story for sure. All right, we are right at 8:01, so I promised we'd try to keep it right at an hour. Any final words from either Hazel or Courtney?
I'll say thank you for this opportunity, and I truly love the opportunities I have to share my story, and I am so excited and happy to all the people I meet. I love it. I truly love being stopped to say, hey, I heard this, and love conversations. That's how we make a difference.
Amen.
I wanted to say to Hazel, I'm so glad you found who you truly are and you get to live your happy best life. And nothing makes me happier than that. And I will fiercely support you. I will teach my children to love you and your children forever and always. And thank you, Julie and Betsy, and everyone for having me on and just listening to me ramble about everything. And I appreciate you guys so much for having my back and my baby's back.
Yeah. Great work your child did. I love it. I love it.
Tori in the chat says, thank you for sharing your story, Courtney and Hazel. And now I'm going to take it back to Julie to talk about next month. If you thought this was good, wait till you hear about next month.
We'll be back in August with the Kansas Teacher of the Year, Brian Skinner, who teaches in Newton. He has spent an entire year going in and out of our public schools in Kansas. He has seen the good, the excellent. He has seen things that we need to make improvements on, and he will talk about what indoctrination he may or may not have seen in our public schools. And please remember, August 1st is the primary, and it is very important that you know your candidates and you make wise decisions about who you're voting for. Good luck with that. We'll see you all next week. Thank you, Courtney. Thank you, Hazel.
Take care.